Hello. All right, so here we are. This is a stapled on intro. If you were in class live, you know that I missed the recording. So today we're talking about period one. All right, that's the years 1491 through 1607. So that's something to keep in mind as we move forward. All right, objective is up there, key terms are up there. Don't worry about the do now. We're going to go ahead and move forward. And just again, this is a really short stapled on, but just so you know, pre Columbian societies, what are they? What was life like before Columbus got there? Pre-European contact. What was life like for the natives pre-European contact? That's the question. Well, natives were a diverse people with diverse societies based on the environments they lived in. That's what their lives were like. If they lived on the coast, they developed fishing villages, settlements. If they lived in like the Great Plains or the Great Basin regions, they were nomadic hunter-gatherer groups who traveled with the food. And then if they lived in places that were good for farming, like the eastern woodlands or the southwest where they developed irrigation, they built cities, massive empires, or settlements, more settled societies. So with that being said, now we're going to have a very crude, most likely, shift into the live class session that we were in. Okay, so I'm going to have to add a video on top of that. I know. Yeah, Gio is the GOAT. He caught me on that. Well, so I'll have to re-record. I'll record an intro in a bit. I'll do it after school. So again, pre-Columbian societies, diverse people, diverse societies based on where they live. If I pick a tribe, let's say the Shawnee that live right here, in the chat, and I mean nuke the chat, everybody tell me, are they going to live similar to a Pueblo group right here? Are they going to have similar societies? Will they be the same group of people? No, right? Nuke that chat. No, no, no. They're not going to live similar societies. So now, if you're using the review guide, Jones like catches something others didn't, you are the GOAT. Gio, that's true. That's how it works. You know that's how it works. The GOAT changes all the time. So now, we're going to get into some of the specifics. If you're using the review guide, I have spots there, right? You lived in here, and so now you'll see specific groups that we're going to get into. So the general, diverse society, diverse people based on where they lived. Let's get specific now. So did I mess that up? I didn't. Okay, sorry. So people in the Southwest, think about these regions, were farmers. They lived in a settled society, right? That means they had towns, they had cities. They don't necessarily have empires, but they have towns, right? These are the famous stonework, like rooms, buildings that they made, right? The cities. And through an early form of irrigation, they developed and cultivated crops like squash, beans, and maize. It was amazing. They were called the Three Sisters, right? Crops, beans, squash, and maize. The amazing Three Sisters. These were the Pueblo tribes, right? The Pueblo tribes. That's what you would call those groups, the Pueblo tribes. So the Pueblo tribes cultivated crops, settled society. Pueblo tribes, cultivated crops, settled society. So you need that. There's a spot in that review guide, but if you're not using the review guide, if you're just filling this in your notebook, note that southwestern region, you had the Pueblo tribes that lived in a settled society where they cultivated crops. So on the packet you gave us, I gave you, you would write that in. I'll show you how it kind of works here, right? I'll show it one more time, especially because there's some people that are getting in here late. If you're writing it in person, native tribes live along, so don't, oh man, I did this out of order. So environment that was good for farming is where you'd put them. And you'd put like the Pueblo, who lived in the Southwest, who irrigated and cultivated, blah, 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 blah. Right? Because that's good for farming. They figured out the irrigation, they were able to farm. When we get to the others along the coast, like the blah, 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 who da, 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 da. Hard to farm like the, and that's where you'd put it. So you base it on what they would be able to do. So the Pueblo would fall under the third one. I'm sorry about them being out of order. I didn't realize they were out of order. They shouldn't have been, but for some reason they were. So that's where you'd put that in. If you're writing it out, that's where you put it in. If you're typing in, again, you can just delete the lines and put them there. Again, if you don't have a printer and you want a copy of all 5 of the units for reviews like that so you can write them out, let me know through Teams and I'll catch you guys next week and get those to you. So I'll leave this up for about a minute. We don't need too much time on that. Again, really straightforward. Really easy to go. Victoria, no worries. So really straightforward. Pueblo group. When you think the Southwest region, the Pueblo group, Pueblo tribes, again, that this stonework kind of housing that they had, and they had irrigation. Don't leave out irrigation. That's important because they live in a desert. How'd they figure out how to grow plants? Why was it so good? Irrigation. Three Sisters, squash, beans, maize. This is old stuff. We talked about this in August, back when everybody was on Zoom. But it's something you're going to need. Just remember it. It's a good refresher. Questions so far on a pre-Columbian society or on Pueblo peoples? Yes, no, maybe so. About 20 seconds left on this slide. If you need more time, let me know. Wait, okay. Doing about another minute on here. We're reviewing key concepts from period 1 throughout the,
Key concept from period 1.
Yeah,
Period 1.
period 1 is
You said you have it when?
the objective. It's in the slide that's on the post in my Teams. There's a picture of a slide and the objective is on there. Should we put the develop part of the first line? Yeah, you'd put the like the, and then you'd name the tribe, Pueblo, and then keep going. Don't forget to name the tribe, but yeah, Pueblo tribes, right? The Pueblo groups. That's where you'd put this part. And you would mention Southwest somewhere in there. About 30 more seconds. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know. The later parts of that packet, by the way, are more aligned to the slides. The early parts kind of mixed just by the nature of talking about pre-Columbian societies, there being so much to talk about. Hunch it and gather, we're not there yet. We're getting there. Like I said, they're out of order. So I started at the bottom on the packet, on the review guide, it's out of order. No, the review doc is not a grade. It's an ungraded assignment. It's just, that's the only way I can make you each a copy is by making it an assignment. I can't put it as a material. Did natives believe? All natives believe in communal ownership. Basically, in native society, the idea of owning land is weird. That's not a thing. It's not a concept. You can't own land. The land is where you live. They live in sand. They don't live in sandcastles, although they look kind of like sandcastles. These are stone. It's not even sand. That's funny though. So yeah, Max, natives, again, the concept of owning land, it's not a thing. You don't own land, you live on land. So when Europeans show up and they start putting fences up and things like that, it's an alien they don't understand like land ownership. What do you mean? Is this your land? Well, yeah, it's the land. We live there. They don't understand that. It's not a concept to them. To all of these tribes, by the way, not just to certain ones. Even the ones who lived in settled societies, they have territory they live in, but they don't own land. It's not a concept to them. Your sandcastle has a moat. Theirs didn't, but they did have irrigation, which is kind of like a moat, water, right? So let's move forward. And we're going to talk about the next group, which are the coastal tribes. I know these slides all look similar, but now we're talking about coastal tribes. So this is, I believe, at the top of your review guide, right? In North America, along the West Coast specifically, and along this coast to an extent, but more the West Coast, you had permanent fishing settlement styles. And up like in the Pacific Northwest, you had housing like this. Native tribes like the Chumash lived there, and their livelihoods were based on the ocean. Fishing, nets, small boats, things like that. But it was, again, permanent society. You're able to live permanently because there's a vast ocean that's a steady source of food next to you. So it's a permanent society, permanent settlement. These aren't teepees and nomads who hunt and gather. That's going to be the next slide. So I'll give you about 2 minutes on here to gather those names and that info. You can pick a few of the names on this map if you want. Like, we don't want to just put the Chumash. If you want to know a couple of other tribes, like the Chinook are the one, like this is a Chinook house right here in the Pacific Northwest. And you got more wood, like log style homes. Again, know a few names of the tribes. That's where the like the, and then you would name some tribes, one or two, typically the one in the slide, and just mention permanent settlement, fishing-based lifestyles, live near the ocean. That's how they live. That's what their society is based on. They don't need to hunt and gather very much. In fact, they don't. Not much at all. About another minute or so. Like the Chumash. Yeah, the Chumash would be the name of the tribe, right? Like the Chumash, who lived in near California, right, in what would be California. And they were permanent fishing settlement. Yeah, that's how you would fill that in, that last, but the like the part. Sorry if the typing blew up anybody's ears. About another 35 seconds or so on this slide, and then we're going to move on to the last section where we talk about some more last bit of pre-Columbian society, and then we're going to get into European contact, reasons for European exploration, coming up a little bit next. So if you have questions about them, anything you want to clarify, let me know. If you're writing this out on paper, you can use the margins, you can use the gaps in between on the guide if you printed it out. I don't know if anybody did, but you can use that to fill in any bonus info. So if you have any questions, that looks like a Minecraft house. It kind of does. I don't think I put a picture of longhouses up, but if you've ever seen longhouses, they're even more blocky in a weird way. Longhouses that the Iroquois used to live in. Like, let me see if I can pull one up, Iroquois longhouse. Like an Iroquois longhouse looks also kind of weird there, but they were up here. Yeah, like it's kind of like a barn. It's like a big barn. You see that? That's an Iroquois longhouse. Minecraft LARPing. It has a moat. All right, so let's move forward. Lastly, you got like the Great Basin and Great Plains region, right? The Great Basin, especially the further central you get, right? Like the more eastern you move if you're starting in the west. And then, of course, this is also true in the Great Plains region. You had nomadic hunter-gatherer groups who didn't have settlements or towns, but instead they traveled in kin-based bands. What do I mean when I say kin-based bands? You know what that means? Yes or no? If yes, tell me what it means. If not, just put no. And you can send it privately or publicly. It doesn't matter. But like in the chat, what does that mean by kin-based? What is a kin-based band? Yes, Roman nailed it. Family groups. It's not, you're right, Brian, it's not a lot of people, but it's specifically family. Like your kin are the people you're related to. And that, don't think like it's only people that are related to, but like it's a few families put together. Does that make sense? So when it's a kin-based band, it would be a couple of families put together. Kind of, be careful with gang, because gang is just group, right? That you don't have to be related. It's more like a gang of families. It's a group of a few families, and then the families are close together. Think of like a little street of a neighborhood, right? Like the people on the street, if they all talked together and were close, all those families were together, like you're friends with your neighbors and so on and so forth. That's what these bands are like. It's a small group of families, and they're kin-based in the sense that it's it's this so-and-so family and that family and this family. An example of a tribe is the Ute. The Ute right here, they lived in the Great Basin, the southeastern kind of Great Basin. And further to the northeast in the forests, though, this is separate, and you would put, it's like a clique. It's kind of like a clique. Again, careful with those terms. But yeah, it's more or less it's small groups. Now, this last slide is talking, that's why it's separate a little bit, is talking about the Eastern Woodlands area. You have groups like the Iroquois who do have settled societies because they are able to farm. So this would go under the farming one at the top. Or the bottom is where the farming one is. But so the Iroquois is another example of a settled society that farmed. But the Utes are a society, or an example of Great Basin societies who are hunter-gatherers, nomadic tribes. The Wichita, the Kiowas, you have a bunch of tribes in these areas that do that. The Cheyenne, the Sioux. Those plains tribes that will be later on known for like horse archery and horse battle and stuff are the ones that are nomadic hunter-gatherers now. But This portrait is very accurate of pre-Columbian times, right? Because what don't you see in this portrait? What don't they have? What are they tracking the buffalo without? What's missing from that portrait that you would think? Guns, sure, that's one. There's no guns. They're using spears. What else? What else isn't there because it's pre-Columbian? What else don't the natives have access to? It's a big one, and it's not in there. Horses, exactly. There's no horses yet. White people, there, of course there's no white people, but there's no horses. Natives don't have horses, right? They weren't on the continent prior to European contact. And so a lot of these natives would travel around and they would hunt these buffalo on foot with a spear or with a bow. But then when horses get here, it transforms this entire region, right? Just the act of being able to tame and master the horse is something that will greatly impact a lot of native tribes, typically for the better, none better than the Comanche, right? But they're not there yet. If you're talking pre-Columbian, don't mention Comanche and things like that. That's later. That's way later. No, the Iroquois are in the east region. It says it in their northeast, like forest region. So like the eastern woodland is what you would say, right? It says it on there. Those are the Iroquois. I know they're on the same slide, but it's because I didn't want to give them their own slide because it's just that little patch of info. I should have put them on the settled side. That's my fault. But they're an eastern woodland tribe, and they're a settled society that farms. They're in the eastern northeast woodlands, northeast forests, right up in here. This is where they're right here, Iroquois, the Iroquois Confederation. And we'll get more into what the Confederation and stuff was too. So yeah, the Iroquois, eastern side, you'd put them with the farming societies, settled societies, with land that's easy to farm because they had fertile soil in those regions. So again, another minute or so, and then we'll move on. I'm hoping we have enough time to finish this unit today. If not, we will finish it on Monday. This is not going to be how all the reviews are set up, by the way, or structured, but some of them will be. So we'll do different styles of review throughout the week. This is just the first one. And since this stuff is so old, I wanted to make sure we had good notes on it because it's been a while. It's been a while. Another 30, 40 seconds. Yeah, when I say it's been a while, you might hear me say it's been a while. I do that all the time. It's my thing. It's not my thing, but it's a thing. I do it too much. I even do it in group chats. It's horrible. Thank you, Brian. All right, so let's move forward. You would have read the buffalo. I don't know if any of them really successfully did that. It's hard to. It's like writing a bull cow. It's hard to do. I do know fun Buffalo Wild Wings, Native American horses, buffaloes fact. Great Plains tribes were killing a whole lot of buffalo when they got horses and guns, like way too many, like way more than, like the Buffalo Soldiers are the ones who really who massacred them. But certain like anthropologists and historians have argued that natives might have been able to do it by themselves without groups like the Buffalo Soldiers doing it. And we'll talk about them in Unit 6, but without groups like the Buffalo Soldiers doing that. So it's an interesting fact that these tribes were really like massacring some buffalo when they got horses and guns, as one would expect, because they knew how to do it so well. So reasons for European exploration. Let's get into this. So the way this is going to work, and I'm going to break out the review guide again to make sure that we're all on the same page if you're using this. So the technologies are going to go here. This is probably way too many lines for a very short sentence that's on the slide. We'll get into that in a second. And this is just a fill in the blank with some empty space if you don't know what the word maritime means. So now that this is up here and it's blocking the slide, yes or no, if you know what it is, tell me what it is. But what does maritime mean? If I talk about maritime technology, maritime warfare, maritime travel, what does that mean? What's maritime? Ocean or sea. Yeah, perfect. Good job, Jay. So maritime travel, maritime technology, I should say, increases. It gets better. In around the mid 1500s, this is known as the age of exploration, the age of discovery, right? And the ability to explore, like just the ability to be able to do it, the act of doing it was something that was not available to Europeans, say, during the Dark Ages, right? During the 13, 14, 1200s. But being able to do it, the ability to do it causes it. Just the ability to do it alone is a cause, right? Advances in maritime technology are the reason why. The Portuguese are the first to develop and use these methods effectively, right? So that third slide where it's talking about like who, where it's giving credit, that second one, I'm sorry, where it's giving credit, it's the Portuguese, right? So the developments, the Portuguese, they're the ones who use it effectively. A guy named Henry the Navigator is very famous for sailing to Africa and setting up a lot of trade posts in Africa. He uses these tools effectively. What's the name? I believe they call it like an empire of trade that Portugal sets up in Africa, where there's all these, think of them like rest stations or gas stops along the way to gather supplies and then sail around Africa. Because where are they trying to get to? And what are they trying to get to? All these Europeans. In the 15 spices, right? They're trying to get to the spices in Asia. They're not trying to get along. So they're trying to get to Asia where all the spices are, and the land routes are controlled by who? Do you know who they're controlled by? A specific group that Europeans don't get along with?
The Italians and the Ottomans?
And the Ottomans are what? They're Muslim, right? Yes. So it's like Christians and Muslim. Ottomans is good. That's a good one. That's good. Y'all had a good world history teacher, didn't you? Yeah. So no, yeah, the Ottomans. You're right. So those Muslims controlling those land routes, not a fan of the Europeans. Europeans trying to find their own way, right? It says alone in the slides, not along, really? Well, you guys are good at spotting my typos. If it says that, yeah, please fix that on your notes. Don't write it wrong. So, again, Portuguese are the first ones to use the technology. The very fact that technology exists is why it happens. What does maritime mean? Ocean stuff. That's it. If you don't know maritime, if you don't recognize it, please write it again. I didn't make note of it on the thing, but I left a space for you to put in maritime as ocean stuff. Because when you're looking at sources, when you're using your AP exam, when you're reading questions, they're just going to say maritime. So just know maritime's ocean stuff. It's one of those terms you just need to know, ocean stuff. So I'll give you about 2 minutes on here for the technologies and all that good stuff, and then we'll go ahead and move forward. I can't spell either. I can't spell either. Nunez can't spell. I can't spell either. I might not be as bad as Nunez, but I'm probably up there. It's probably like there's a top 5 list at the campus. I'm probably up there. Can't do math. I don't do math either. Maybe it's a history teacher thing, right? Like math and spelling, no go. It might be, Z, it might be in every history teacher thing. I mean, when we're in school, like right when you get to like history class, yeah, he's not here to shout that though. But yep, get history teacher can spell. Yeah, so I will say if you study history in college especially, they really call him. They really beat spelling out of you because they make you not care about spelling. They keep saying it over and over again because it really doesn't matter. And don't tell anybody this, but in real life it doesn't matter either. Because here I am teaching history, not spelling either. It's all about the content, not the spelling. The toes, book binding. Oh, that's fun stuff. Yeah, that's messed up. They do neck binding too, and head shrinking. Do y'all talk about head shrinking? Head shrinking is the worst.
Hold up, neck binding?
Yeah, that's a thing.
What?
Yeah, that's a thing, neck binding.
Hold up real quick. Let me just snap your neck.
They don't, no, it's not like to curve it. It's to make it like elongated. And you guys never heard of neck binding? Neck
This
binding?
is a whole new topic.
Hold on.
Now we're too caught up on the toe binding or the foot binding.
Yeah, we're a little, yeah, hold on. I'll show you really quick and then we're going to move on because I'm wasting time, but I got to.
We've been too busy on Abraham Lincoln's assassination.
Yeah, Lincoln was assassinated. Hold on.
Yo, Lincoln's assassination is
All right, guys,
irrelevant.
it's gonna freak you out. You ready?
Yeah.
There it is. That's neck binding. So they start when they're young and it gets like that. This is a thing. This happens. Somebody's chin. Yeah, that's weird. That's a weird one. So that's neck binding. That's a thing. It's not as bad as the toe binding, but it's there. Not as gross anyways. I think Mayans and I think some of the Aztecs elongated skulls. Yeah, they would put their heads and stuff too. A U-shaped neck. Yeah, so there's all sorts of weird binding rituals that tribes do. I don't think those are all North American tribes, though. Most of those are actually from other parts of the world. But we should ask them, does it take longer to drink? That's a good experiment. That's a science question right there. Does the water take longer to get there when they eat noodles? That's funny. All right. That one was my fault, but I felt that you couldn't be, valid history students without knowing about neck binding if you know so much about toe binding and foot binding. So there you go. Neck binding's a thing. On your own time, look up head shrinking. That one's even weirder. So explorers and colonial systems. Let's get back into it. Let's get necessary information. Thank you, Roman. See, somebody agrees with me. So for this part, it is on the guide. If you're using the guide, imagine them choking. If you're using the guide, this would go under identify some ways European nations colonized America. And what does that mean? Well, there's different styles, right? There's the style Spain and France used, and the Dutch and most of the countries used, which is they just picked explorers who kind of knew what they were doing, or who at least they thought they knew what they were doing, and sent them to the New World. So Jacques Cartier, I'm bad at French, is a French explorer. You guys know Columbus of Spain, the Italian guy whose real name was Colombo. Dutch sent a guy named Henry Hudson. You have Henry the Navigator, who's Portuguese. These are all explorers. So one way that European nations colonized is they sent famous explorers. And then I would name these three guys. Like the French had this guy, the Spanish had this guy, the Dutch had this guy. England had different methods. All right, they chartered colonies where the king said, hey, go make a colony, but it's really mine, but you're going to do it, but it's mine, but you're doing it. There was proprietary colonies, which are like independent colonies, and then there were royal colonies that were other like king ones. So I flipped them. I'm sorry. Royal colonies are the ones the king makes. Chartered colonies are the ones companies pay for. And proprietary colonies are English colonies that don't belong to anybody. Like who? So think 1607 and 1620. One of those is chartered. One of those is proprietary. No, they were not unified in their efforts. Joint stock companies are also the ones who charter, right? So joint stock companies charter colonies. So which was the chartered colony? Was it Jamestown or was it Plymouth? Do you remember? Yes, no? Jamestown, right? Jamestown was chartered. A company funded that expedition. And Plymouth was a bunch of families who were trying to escape religious persecution. Jamestown will eventually become a royal colony. I do not think Plymouth does, though. So, and joint stock companies we're going to get into. We're not there yet, but we will get into what those are. I don't think those come up yet. Okay. Does anybody need time on this? This was just the names really quick and the dates. Give you a quick 30 seconds just in case. Okay. All right, we'll do a little more in 30 seconds. Okay, let's go ahead and move forward. If you need more time than that, let me know so I can backtrack. But so yeah, these are the different types, right? You either pick somebody who you trust to know what they're doing, or you have the weird English set. But something that I didn't put on the slide that Max mentioned that's worth mentioning, Europe is not unified in their efforts to colonize. They are scattered. The individual nations have their own levels of interest, right? Who can name a European nation as from the very beginning who's super interested in colonizing the New World? Like it's their top, Spain. Yeah, you nailed that. Spain is like super invested, right? They're going to transform most of North America. Who can name one that's not that and who kind of doesn't care? They care about certain parts of it, but they are not interested in living there. France is a major one, right? They want the money, they want the resources, but they're not interested in setting up colonies. The fur tribe, yeah, they want the furs. That's what they're there for. Whereas like the English are really interested in living there, right? They want to live there. So it's all kind of their furs. I wouldn't put it that way. So reasons for European exploration. These are your 3 Gs, things you know. I know you know these already, but we got to hit it again, right? Europeans' efforts to explore and conquer the New World came from a want of resources, wealth, economic and military competition, and the spread of Christianity. Everybody's out to spread Christianity. That is everybody's goal in all these wonderful Christian nations. So that is a big part of it. God, gold, glory. On the chart, on the review, if you're using the review, you have the boxes where you'd fill in some details. And you guys know the details already, right? Provide 2 examples. I didn't have to give you that many here because I know you can come up with that, right? For gold, it's literally gold and silver, but also natural resources, right? Things that we'll get in the Columbian Exchange, or when I say we, I mean Europe. Glory, more land, stronger nation, right? The bigger you are, the more power you get. Colonies allow for mercantilist systems to form. Individuals gain favor politically and socially for going out and exploring and getting stuff done. And of course, God's Christianity. But what's another social one that I didn't write in there? That's religious. It's religious minded. Other than spreading Christianity, what's another reason people colonize in the name of the Lord? Think about it. What's another reason you do it? If you're not looking to spread your faith, why else would you need to go somewhere else to practice it? Other than conversion. You're not looking to convert people, but why would you need to go somewhere else with your faith? Religious freedom. Good job, Eric. Yeah, you want religious freedom, right? Tolerance. You're escaping persecution, like the Pilgrims did. So I'll leave this up for about 2 minutes, and then we'll move forward. If you need more time than that, let me know. I mean, if you count disease, I imagine the KD is more than 5.0. About a minute and a half left. Cash crops would count as a natural resource. You don't have to specifically identify them yet, but when you would say natural resources, that means the crops, the plants, the animals, the things that we discovered or that they discovered during the Columbian Exchange. That's one way to put it. That's one way to put it, Zach. It's a very Catholic-minded way to put it. Yes, there's a new type of magnetic compass that's invented during that early time, the Age of Exploration time. That's one of the innovations, right? So you've got like the magnetic compass, the Caravel, the astrolabe, all those things working together are what spurred on the Age of Exploration, Brian. So yeah, the compass is one of them, actually. It's one of the things. Geopolitical reason is next. It's one we've already talked about. I'm pretty sure it's one you guys are going to know. Let's go on into that, actually. So what is the primary? So one cause, right, is the ability to do it. The other is the 3 Gs. But the biggest reason that all these European nations are sailing around the world, what are they looking for? We said it earlier. What are they looking for? What do they want? What are they trying to get? Spices. They're trying to get spices. Why can't they get the spices? Why can't they use the traditional means that they've always had in order to get them? Who controls the land routes? Those dang Muslims, right? Muslims and the Ottomans control the land routes. So because of that, Europeans are trying to sail around and find access to India and the spices in Asia through the sea, right? That's, if you remember, Columbus's whole job was, I'm going to sail around the world and I'm going to go hit Asia. But instead of hitting Asia, he hits other continents. Do you write this? You write the answers to this. You would answer these questions. You don't write this down. This is the question. This question's in the guide. You would answer these questions, right? They're looking for spices. And the reason they can't use the land routes is because they're Muslim controlled and these European nations are trying to get around that. They don't want to pay the Ottomans and Muslims anymore. They want to go get their own stuff. So I'll give you about a minute or so to get that answer in. If you need me to repeat anything, let me know. I can even try to type it in chat if somebody need that. But this is stuff you should already kind of know. You've already talked. This is like a world history topic, but it still bleeds into American history. It's why everything starts. Can you repeat the second one? Sure. So Europe cannot rely on the land passages because they're controlled by the Muslims. So because of that, they're trying to go around it. They're trying to sail around it. They're trying to use the ocean instead. About another 45 seconds. So again, that is why the whole thing was caused. That is why. That is the whole purpose. It's the whole reason. The first one is spices, right? Spices. Spices are why. What's the reason? Access to spices. Does anybody need more time on these questions, right? Because again, you're not writing down from the slide. You already know the answers to these. These are things you've already learned. We're just hitting at it again. Access to spices is what you're looking for. So I'm going to move forward. Well, remember, like, right, spices it doesn't mean like a bottle of garlic salt. It's the access to, like, it's more than just that. It's that, but it's like everything. It's the salt. It's the weird things that you can't in the 15th and 14th and 12th and all these centuries past, right? You can't just get that stuff. That stuff's in Asia. That's where you got to go to get it. Tea is among that, all this crazy stuff. So it's all of that stuff. It's not just that, right? It's not just a singular item. It's a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, so let's move forward. Reasons for European exploration. So this is the last little part of this topic, right? Again, we're doing all of Unit 1 in one presentation, one thing. So a major effect of colonization is a change from old to new, right? And that old system is something called feudalism. So this triangle is not in your review guide. It's not in your notebook. You don't need to make this triangle. This triangle is here so you understand how feudalism works. Because when we first talked about it back in August, I didn't think to put something like this. I probably should have, right? In feudalism, peasants work on the noble's land in exchange for protection. And the system just goes all the way up until you hit a king, right? So the king protects them, they protect them, and they protect them, right? And the peasants are on the bottom of this list. They work in the fields in exchange for protection. That's their job. That's what they do. That is going away in exchange for something called capitalism, right? Capitalism is where people are more free to earn their own money and do their own thing. Economics more independent. The concept of money being of value to everybody starts to become a thing. We're not going to get more into that really here. Just know that feudalism is going away for capitalism. Part of why this change happens, where is this in the review guide? It's on the third page, top of the third page. So all this exploration brings about a change in Europe. Old systems fading away for a newer one. The old European system of blank is changing to blank, right? Feudalism to capitalism. Janessa, you're gonna give me a heart attack. You keep saying stuff like that. Don't even pretend. And then joint stock companies are for the margins. So a joint stock company is where a group of people put in their money so they can all share in the profit of something, right? A venture, some adventure, some exploration, something, right? Whatever it is. People put together, they gather their money so they can share in the profit, but they also spread out the risks and the failure so it doesn't ruin one of them. So for example, if I decide to pay a whole bunch of money for some thing, that thing is going to make me more money down the line. But I pay for it, I buy it, and then the thing gets here and it breaks and I don't make any money, right? I lost all the money I put into that. But if I get all the teachers in the building and we each put in like $5 and that thing gets here and it breaks, well, then we only lost $5. So it's not as big of a hit, right? It's not as big of a failure. Does that make sense? That's why joint stock companies are such a big deal. That's why they help so many people. Because instead of, say, these lords and vassals, one of them losing all their money on a venture, they all team up and they all pitch in money, and then they all just get to make money in return. Does that make sense? Yes, no, I need to know. Because this is kind of a heady concept. Yes, so in your margins on your guide somewhere, put in what the joint stock company is, and that part of why this change happens is just the existence of these things. People realizing that it's cheaper to pitch in to get something rather than just one person taking all the risk. And for colonies, that's going to be a big deal. That's why colonies are going to be able to, these companies are going to fund this, right? Like the Virginia company, it's not the Maryland company, but it's like, you know, there's different groups that fund this. East India Company, when you get into the other side of the world, right? That's all colonization. Just broke something in here. So I'll give you a quick 2 minutes. It shouldn't take us more than that, but just in case you need it, it's there. But again, the change that you need, what you need to write, what you can't leave this slide without writing is feudalism fades away to capitalism. Now, if you don't know feudalism, like if you don't think feudalism and already know what it is, then write the definition down. That's what it's there for. Look at the triangle, the pyramid. That's what it's there for. Capitalism forms instead. It's a slow form and it'll happen over time, but it's there. It's going to start growing. And joint stock companies are a big part of why. Like, why does feudalism go away? Because joint stock companies start making everybody money. All of a sudden, you'll get some of these guys right here that are, you know, that have more money than this guy. And that's when this whole system starts not making sense. Right? Why do I need you to protect me? I have a bigger army than you, stuff like that. This is why, by the way, when you get into like the French Revolution, France is so backwards because they still have all these people like making all the money, keeping it all, doing all the stuff. When all these people are still broken, they're like, why? When everybody else isn't like that anymore, that's where that comes from. So it's kind of weird. They're not still feudal France during that time, but their structure is almost like that because they still have an absolute monarch. Doesn't make sense to a lot of them. They still have a very wealthy and strong nobility class. About another 35 seconds. Coca-Cola logo. Yeah, it's Coca-Cola logo. Enjoy capitalism. It's funny. It's hard to find an image that connotes capitalism. So I just literally found a fancy picture of the word capitalism. All right, guys, let's go ahead and move forward. All right, the Columbian Exchange. This is a whole bunch of dense information that gets only one slide. On your review guide, it is very simple, right? It is a chart and it is the explanation. The Columbian Exchange was the passage of blah, 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 right? Plants, animals, people, and diseases from Europe to America and America to Europe. That's the Columbian Exchange. That's the definition. That's what you need. What's the chart for? Examples, right? Fill it with examples. Turkeys from America to Europe, right? That's really the only animal. But all sorts of livestock go from Europe to America: pigs, cows, cattle, sheep, horses. I said pigs, cows, cattle, cows and cattle. They're the same thing, right? Fruits, peppers, squash, beans, potatoes, corn, tomato, chocolate, cacao, coffee, all go from the New World to Europe. Things like, or no, coffee went from the Old World. I'm sorry, not coffee. Coffee's Europe to America. But Europe to America got onions, citrus, bananas, sugar cane. Sugar cane's gonna be a big deal. especially in South America for the Spanish. Turnips, olives, peaches, and of course, diseases. Of course, you got people too, natives going over there to Europe, and then you have African slaves specifically being moved into Europe as well as Europeans going into America, right? But again, diseases. Diseases are going to decimate, literally and figuratively, decimate native populations. Decimate, 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 destroy, destroy, destroy. Diseases will do more to European natives, than any European with a gun could. Yes, practically, right? We don't have those figures, Janessa, so I can't tell you, I can't say that specifically. But here's what I will say. There is no question that, think of the best native wars, the best fights that the natives ever put. I'll give you malaria for that trick. You're not wrong, though. And not even malaria goes, but it's more like smallpox. Smallpox is the thing that does it the most. I can't stress enough that think of the biggest, best Native American resistance that you'll ever see as far as from the native perspective, right? The biggest fight they could put up with. And it's never more than 2,000 natives. And that's the most. And that's way back when Tecumseh's fighting. That's after the French and Indian War. That's not even, when you get into the Comanche and those resistance, it's a couple of hundred natives, right? They're really good at resisting, but there were so few of them left. And it was due to disease. Disease took out so many of them that it doesn't take long, right? When the Europeans start getting here in bigger numbers, it doesn't take long for them to outnumber the natives. It really doesn't. Especially in those specific regions that they're living a lot in, it's because of disease. Disease opened the door in a way that no gun ever could. And it's devastating. It's horrible. But it's what happens when you don't, it's on science and stuff. What people move. So you have natives going to Europe in small numbers. You don't even necessarily have to write that. But more importantly, right, Europeans move to America, and they also bring with them African slaves. African slaves will go into America. They're not native to that area. So natives go to Europe, small number, barely worth mentioning. The biggest one is Europeans living in North America, and they bring along African slaves. The bringing of African slaves is what you'd want to put for people. Special note of interest, hammocks. Hammocks come from America. Columbus found them famously. They're not on the picture. I believe this picture is in the review guide too. I put it in there so you could pull from it, but it's in there as well. So I'll give you about a minute and a half, and I know it looks like we're going to run out of time, but we're not, because we're almost done, and we'll be able to finish this. I know we will. I believe in you guys. We can do it. We've got 2 slides left, so we got this. So I know we can get it done in the time period. So we're going to finish Unit 1 today. And again, if you have any questions, let me know. And if we end the call and you still have questions, let me know on Teams. Speak into existence. We're going to do it. I'm telling you, we're going to finish in time. It is going to happen. 2 slides are left. And they're short slides, and they're stuff you already know, because we're going to talk about Spain again. Everybody knows Spain stuff, right? I learned about Spain already. About another 50 seconds. Do me a favor for these last couple of slides. When you're done with the notes, will you let me know so I can know we're good to move on? No, there's no exit ticket today. Your exit ticket today is going to be finish the other exit tickets, because I'm still waiting on some of you. Maybe not you in here, but there's a few of you, especially for the second one and the third one. You need to get it done, because I'm going to finish those grades and that feedback over the week. Everybody loves Spain. I'm going to finish those grades and that feedback over this weekend. And those are all standalone grades. They're like practices for Unit 5. So it's 2 SAQ ones that are in Google Classroom, and it's the AP Classroom one. So there's no exit ticket today. If you're done with those old ones, you're done. If you're not, then move on. The picture's in your guide. Uh-oh. Well, if you need more time, I will get the slide to you. It's also on Google. But I'm going to go to move forward. So if you want to screenshot it, because I'm going to move on. Because you can use both. They're pretty much the same. There's a few details in the words on the slide that are not in the picture. All right, let's move forward. encomienda system and the asiento system, right? First system, the Spanish forced natives to work for them. Second system, the African slaves were brought in to work on Spanish plantations. Why did the Spanish have to resort, or not resort, but have to switch to African slaves? What did those rude, inconsiderate natives have a pesky habit of doing while the Spanish were using them as slaves? Dying from diseases, right? They had that pesky habit, that rude habit of dying of disease or escaping because they knew the land. African slaves don't know the land, can't escape, and they're fairly immune. They're more immune than natives are to these diseases because they have more contact with Europeans. Yeah, how dare they, right, Roman? How dare those natives die? Those so rude of them. So get those two definitions really quick. Again, about a minute and a half. You don't need the full time. It's stuff you guys knew in August when we covered it. I'm sure you still have a good idea of it now, right? But encomienda system ruined by those rude natives who, again, pesky habit of dying while they're working hard. And then the asiento system, which is a system based in African slaves. That comes in. Make sure you get those definitions down. And then if you're using the review guide, you know the last thing is that pyramid, the caste system. And I'm just going to show you the pyramid and you just fill in the pyramid. If you know it already or think you do, feel free to start filling it in. If you're not sure, go ahead. And now if you're typing, it's hard to fill in that pyramid. You might not be able to. So you might just need to write this down on the slides underneath. Simply, it's not that they're just have more contact with Europeans. They're more used to it, right? The Portuguese and all them have been showing up there for a while. So they're more immune to that than, say, Native Americans, which had zero contact. That's why this whole pre-Columbian, right, pre-European contact is the whole thing, right? They lived one way and then Europe gets there and it's. All right, so about 20 seconds and then we'll move on to the last slide where I'll give you about a minute and a half. We are almost done here. Like I said, there's no new exit ticket because I want you to take time to use those old ones. Those old ones are like independent practice. They're like quizzes. They're standalone grades. So if you didn't do them and you're in here, and there's 52 of you in here, make sure you get those done afterwards. You'll have time. The AP classroom closes at 4 o'clock today. So if you didn't do that one, get it done. If it's locked up, message me on Teams. Spanish Costa system, right? Peninsulars at the top, that's you're from Spain. Creoles, this is wrong. Don't write this down, right? What's with Creoles? What was Creole? Do you remember Creole in chat? What do you think? American born, right? This is a wrong, I did not, man, I'm so annoyed. I didn't realize this is wrong. Creoles were Spanish born in America. They're Spaniards, pure Spaniards born in America. Don't write that down. Just write the name and you guys know, American-born Spaniards. So annoyed. Mestizos, Spanish, Indian, mulattoes, Spanish, and African. I don't know who made this. I don't know why I didn't notice this. But again, Spanish and African, not white American. Spanish and African, mulatto. Mestizo, Spanish, and Indian. And then you have natives and African slaves on the bottom. You could make the argument that it's African slaves and then natives. I've seen it like that. I've also seen it the other way. Definitely don't do it the other way. And I tend to put them there because they're kind of more of a side-by-side than they are. They're kind of like the mulattoes and the mestizos, right? The Africans and the natives are both on the bottom.
You said to write down the Creoles, right? Or not to write them?
Don't write their explanation, right? You write the one that's true, right? That
Okay.
they're American-born Spaniards. The Creoles and mulattoes are not explained correctly on this image. I apologize. I just picked the triangle and threw it in there. That's my fault. So Creoles are American-born Spaniards. Mulattoes are Spanish with African mixed. Don't put black, put African. It's important. And then mestizos are Spanish and Indian mixed. And then you've got natives and you've got African slaves on the bottom, sharing the bottom. That's the last slide, and that is the last time we have for class. When you're done with this, make sure your old exit tickets are done, guys, and have a great weekend. I will see you guys later on this afternoon. I told you we'd finish on time. See you, Roman. Have a good weekend as well.